Howdy, y'all. This is Market Explainer, America's #1 business news podcast. Today, like we do every week, we're going to break down 4 stories. The first one is going to be about a new player in social media. Who could it be? Former president of the United States. Just going to give you a hint. It's not the peanut farmer. It's not Bush, Obama, Clinton. We don't know who it could be. We're going to have to get into it. We're going to talk about Netflix is opening a movie theater. What? A token, a crypto token gets listed on CoinBase and it explodes.
Imagine that.
And then we're going to talk about season 2 of Squid Game and the business implications of the value that it's going to bring to Netflix.
Yes.
Never even seen the show. Before we jump into that first story, I want to tell you to go hit up our Patreon. We are going to be loading up our Patreon with all sorts of new dynamic content from yours truly. And I guess the big man also will join us. My car podcast is going to be moving exclusively to Patreon. We're going to be doing some other stuff over there. So
see, I learn something new every time we talk about this. I do so little around here that it's hard really to keep up. Right. I am running the show. As I've always said, I am the lead co-host, and the big man is the junior associate co-host. You can also go to our website, marketexplainer.com. We had many argument over that website getting developed, so you should definitely go check it out to make that
our arguments.
True. That in itself is worth figuring out,
Yes. So it's marketexplainer.com and patreon.com/marketexplainer. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. I fought tooth and nail to get that Facebook page rebranded.
Yeah, you did.
And then in our conversation, in our pre-show conversation, I came up with the better name. And I was like, we're stuck with this one. I'm not dealing with ever changing. We might change our logo, but we're never going to change our name because it's too freaking hard. So we're stuck now. I was supposed to legally change my actual name. And then I started looking at all the paperwork, and I have a couple licenses, like professional licenses and all this other stuff. And I have to change everything. And then all my bills have to get changed. And I was just like, this is too much work.
Laziness took over. I like it.
So I was like, I'm just gonna create an LLC in the name that I was gonna have.
Exactly.
And that will
you go.
Yeah, that's as much as I'm gonna.
That's the way to go. That's the easier. It's amazing how much easier it is to create a person as an LLC than it is to create a person in real life. Yes.
Well, actually, creating a person is not that hard. I know people who've gotten hammered and accidentally created a person. Listen, I've never gotten hammered and accidentally fixed my transmission, so it's actually pretty easy to make a person.
Can we go back to business now? Can we go back to business?
So listen, we can, but listen, we always say on the show we're not a political show,
and we're not.
The nature of the universe that we live in now is politics touches everything, and we don't want to be political. But if we want to talk about business, we're going to have to talk sometimes about things that are political.
There's going to be some overlapping stories from time to time that are relevant in business from week to week.
And, we're getting close to having done 50 episodes here. And this is a subject that we talked about in the first episode ever, which was, what is Trump going to do when he leaves office?
Right.
Now, let me just say this and preface this again, continuing my original preface, which is we don't want to be political, but if we want to talk about business, nothing is off limits. That includes being political, talking about something political. We are making a promise here and now that we'll never pivot and become a political show because that's boring.
Right.
We are always going to have our laser focus on business news, but we're going to expand into some other things, none of which is going to be politics, but we're going to have to say some political things from time to time. And we're open and honest about everybody knows, right? There's one of us who's an independent, that guy. And then there's the other one who is correct about everything that happened to you in the last 18 months.
And everybody can guess based on what that says about you of your political affiliation. Anyway,
I have no political affiliation.
There are 3 parts to this story that we're going to talk about today, right? 3 different aspects.
All of them are hilarious to me. Every single one is funnier than the next one.
One of them, that previous President Trump or President Trump, new media company is Trump Media and Technology Group, which is releasing a Truth Social, right?
It's
media
called
platform.
Truth Social, which is their social media.
Truth Social.
So what are the three things? Tell me the three things.
The second part of this we're going to talk about is the fact that once it was announced and was available to download, which was not supposed to be en masse until November, the hacker group Anonymous took control over it within hours. And third, that in a true Trumpian fashion, and I guess that's as political as I want to get about it, in true Trumpian fashion, the social media platform that he has created by himself is an actual ripoff of freeware that the company is already suing him for.
Okay, hold on, back up.
I'm just saying. Hold on.
Yeah, okay, we'll address what he just said.
We'll address all three aspects. So those are the three parts of the story that actually need to be talked about, right?
Okay.
The existence, the immediate reaction by Anonymous, and then of course the platform creation itself and what's that meant.
Okay, so the first thing is Trump Media and what is it? Trump
Media and Technology Group. TMTG is what it's being called.
Which is, if I'm not incorrect, it's going SPAC. It's going public as a SPAC.
Well, that's the initial plan. It was actually announced all together. Here's my TMG, TMTG idea. The reason it's called a media group and the reason you have Truth Social is the original app, which is its only product at this point. But the idea, as Trump has said repeatedly since presidency, is he wants a media empire. He's
never said that. He's never said that, but he has gone to war with the media, which, again, we're not a political show, but I would say if this guy did anything that I agreed with, it was how he openly defecated on the corporate press. Just saying.
Well, since being banned from all social media platforms out there.
And here's the other thing that I find interesting here is in the run-up to his election in 2016, his son-in-law was running around the country and the world buying up smaller media firms, which lends credence to the conspiracy or the belief that is a little more conspiratorial, that his run for presidency, which is just like, listen, other people have run for presidency with the same intention.
Sure.
I forget the guy's name. Andrew Yang.
Which and then in turn tried to run for governor of New York and failed at that too. But
listen, that was obviously a ploy to running for president is a great way to get your name out there.
Correct.
None of us would know Marianne Williamson without her trying to run for office. That chick is lit. She is off her rocker nuts.
Yeah.
And I love her for that, right?
Sure.
And so part of my anarcho-capitalist kind of philosophy lends credence to going, hey, that person's nuts. So that's more me than the philosophy, I would say. But, and there was speculation that he did it as a ploy to say, hey, the media is lying to you. They're evil. And I'm launching my own, what at the time people believed to be a Fox News competitor.
Correct.
And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that's true. Now, this corporation, I believe the public arm of it, or the reverse merger part that was going to acquire this to make it public, the SPAC part of it was actually filed a few days after the election, and he lost in 2020. So if that, just again being political for a second, tells you everything you wanted. If you wanted to know how his true feelings.
Yeah, I mean, look, he knew he was going to do something, right? When you get deplatformed by Twitter and Facebook or whatever, even if, again, not trying to be political, but a run in 2024, even being a possibility, doing those without a social media presence would be next to impossible. I mean, it just would be. So to me, again, I don't even think this is a push 2024. I think it's yet another grift in that there are going to be millions of people that will download this app. There are going to be millions of people that will, at the very least, try to...
The stock is already a meme stock, which is great.
to try to in some way, and then you're going to have actual media companies out there, your Foxes, your CNNs, your whatever, are going to cover this in some way, however it goes. Whether it's a flaming bag of garbage or whether it takes off, they're going to cover it one way or the other.
And one thing that we have to give credit where it's due, and we have to say, listen, this guy was excellent at getting earned media. So in media, you have paid media, earned media.
Right.
Paid media is what you pay for. Earned media is you just went and created buzz, and now you don't need to pay for media coverage of whatever.
I doubt they paid $1 to advertise this truth.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The stock. They haven't paid a penny to... Yeah, nothing.
It's all a reaction to his name being tied to it and that kind of stuff. But again, for the SPAC to actually succeed, right? So there are people out there that fall into the category that, look, this is a predetermined thing. It's going to succeed because it's got his name attached to it. And there's enough people out there to try it, right? That it will create itself. And that will essentially give President Trump he's always been a millionaire, right? He's always had these hard assets, his hotels and his whatever. Yeah. But this creates a different level of wealth if it succeeds, right? Yes. A completely different asset wealth that he can play with all the time. I mean, the hotels and stuff like that are on paper wealth, but they're not liquid. They don't pay it in monthly salary. They don't,
in one of the, there's a lot of documents that have leaked or come to light, and one of them said something along the lines of the Trump organization owes something like $500 million.
Right. Absolutely.
But here's the thing. The super wealthy, this isn't a condemnation or a critique. I'm just telling you how things are.
Sure.
Explaining it as we do on Market Explainer.
We're observing and reporting. That's what we're doing.
That's all we're doing. The uber wealthy use debt in a way that normal people can't and probably shouldn't.
Absolutely. And they leverage it in a way most people don't understand. It's one of the things that they consider.
Is you don't pay taxes on debt. So the point is you create assets and then you go borrow against those assets. Now, why you couldn't, if you're a regular person, is you don't have enough assets and you couldn't get enough money to matter to balance out the interest.
Absolutely.
So the tax savings aren't going to be there for you because the interest on some of the loans you could get are going to be pretty sharky.
Right.
And you shouldn't because, listen, Trump and other wealthy people who are worth hundreds of millions and billions of dollars have lawyers that are getting paid thousands of dollars an hour to make sure that their assets are structured in such a way that, this is something that Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he got sued by the Learning Annex, and the corporation that they sued had no assets. So he filed bankruptcy. Once the judgment came in, he filed bankruptcy.
Right.
And that the specific entity that they sued had
failed to exist at the bankruptcy, so it paid nothing.
And it's gone.
So let's kind of trend this back. So look, you've got someone that clearly set out because of his disbarment from social media platforms. He came out with what was essentially a blog at one point and said that was his new social media platform. It never took off, right? Yeah. It never took off. It wasn't. And now you have this, and it's first being Freedom Social. Now I'm going to kind of jump to. Well, I'm not going to jump to, but so you have Freedom Social, which is its only product of TMTG at this point. I'm sorry, Truth Social. Yeah. Now, Truth Social.
First of all, dumb name. But if you're going to call it something like Truth, go buy truth.com. It's going to cost you $2 or $3 million.
Right.
Because right now it's forwarding to somebody else's website. The fact that they didn't do that and they went forward announcing a SPAC.
Well, but this to me is how this is a whole bunch of boomers ideas. Look at the name, Trump Media, the Trump Media Technology Group. Very boomer, right? And then you turn around and go Truth Social because you have to name it social because it's a social media network. Again, all of these names came straight out of boomers, old white people with gray hair going, no, that's awesome. Truth Social. That'll be so great.
Why do you got to make it about white people?
I'm sorry, man. It's a boomer. Like, this is all comes out of you. These names scream, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then you turn around and you know what the very first rule of their terms and conditions, the very first rule of a social media platform created for freedom and the Truth Social, you know what the number one rule is of the platform? Terms and conditions. And this is why, in my head, this ties into our second part of the story, which is why Anonymous kind of went in and created fake profiles for Trump and, Pence and yada yada. Their very first rule of their terms and condition is on the Freedom and Truth social media app, you are not allowed to make fun of Donald Trump or the app of Truth Social.
That's great.
So that being the case, what did you essentially do to hacker groups? In this case, Anonymous is the one that did it, right? Or whatever. It's like going on the internet and going, hey, no one make fun of me, please. Can y'all stop making fun of me? What is the entire internet going to do now for the next week?
Yeah, it's called the Streisand Effect. For those of you who don't know, Barbara Streisand sued somebody for pointing out that she owned a house in California on the internet. And it turns out by pointing out that she owned a house somewhere in California and suing the person for revealing that, let's say 10 people saw that this guy said, hey, here's a picture of Barbara Streisand's house. Hundreds of millions of people now know where that house is and that it's attached because she sued. Right. So it's a Streisand effect. So by telling people you're not allowed to make fun of these two things. So listen, first of all, this guy memed his way into the White House.
Well, again, not a political show. That is Danny's belief.
Yeah. I think we are entering, we're leaving the information age and we're entering the meme age. Meme magic is real, my friends. I was saying this 5 or 6 years ago to a friend, and he's like, I think you're out of your freaking mind. I'm like, no. Trust me. Meme magic is real. So.
Okay, meme magic is real look at Brexit, right? Like, meme magic is real.
Yeah.
Like, it's real because of its influence on younger people, right?
Its ability to, so I tracked the genesis of this to Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart was the first person who, for my generation, the older millennials, really created that kind of humorous, where he's not actually making a salient argument about anything political, which is, I never liked Jon Stewart for that reason. I like him post Daily Show, but I'm saying
he's also back on Apple Plus. He's got a brand new show on Apple Plus.
Yeah, but
it's great. But yes, I get what you're saying. His satirical part of politics.
Yes, he popularized that for my generation to the extent, because every time I went into any, I went to a few universities. I went to community college and then a university. Anytime you walked into one of those student unions or those whatever, what are they always playing? When I was a kid, it was always Daily Show reruns or whatever.
Comedy Central, Daily Show, whatever. It was so good, and it became, and again, that goes right into what you were saying about the meme magic.
Culture, yes.
I think that led to the meme magic because of those hot takes on real life situations, and then it became so popular that he had to become political.
Yeah, and so he never, again, I was never aligned politically with anything he ever said. And he never said anything that I thought was necessarily profound, but that's what starts. And what happened is somehow the meme magic went from the other team to the right team. I don't know how that happened. It just happened that way, right? And now the official phrase is the left can't meme, and they really can't. I promise you.
No, that is a matter of perspective that, again, I get how you have, but but and the fact that Jon Stewart didn't say anything profound is just awful for you to say something like that. But again, you're allowed your opinion. He said several things that were profound.
Right. For this first thing in the terms of service is you're not allowed to attack the guy who created it. Can you imagine? Do you know all the memes? Listen, I'm just going to say this. This reminds me of a certain chairman of a certain country who was, compared to a certain cartoon character, Winnie the Pooh. And the character is illegal in that country because of this. And here's the thing, I didn't know that, and I didn't believe him. I didn't believe that was who he was going to be, right?
Right.
And it lends credence to a lot of criticism about him that I didn't necessarily hold before to be true, that I maybe changed my mind about who he is as a person, Well,
I mean, again, this is the whole question of freedom, right? Can you have freedom without the negative consequences that it creates, right? Can you have freedom without the groups that sometimes are created under the guise of freedom, and how do you deal with them accordingly? In this case, you have a true social media platform that is going to bill itself as I'm not going to kick myself off of, I wouldn't kick me off of this platform, but your rules are more stringent than the ones you got kicked off from. It begs the question right off the bat of sincerity, right? What are you really trying to build here? And again, I think it's money. They've already gone that there's already a true social plus, which is they're going to be their version of a video platform, that kind of stuff. And then it brings us to our third part of this story, which is that this entire thing.
But before you get into the third part of the story, I just want to say this much. I'm part of other alternative social media. And I use Minds, MINDS, and I use Float. And let me tell you something. It's not the same as Twitter and Facebook because it's a little more insular of a community.
Right.
And, free speech is a little more fun to have when you can make people who don't like what you're hearing hear what you have to say.
True.
So I'll just say that, as someone who has been banned from Twitter and had to, jump to those other platforms, I got banned for making fun of someone of my same race. And I was accused of
which you still should not be able to do, Danny, but all right.
All I said was he probably only speaks English, which is probably true.
Okay. Yeah, but still, Danny.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that, part of the fun is having people on there who don't like you, and the fact that this network won't do that is further moving the dialogue towards silos where we're not going to be discussing with each other, which is already happening on other social media platforms based on algorithms.
But that goes back to my thought that it's just a grift. If I create a silo of like-minded people, I now have a bucket of fish, right?
Now,
fish in a barrel that I can feed whatever propaganda, whatever information, and then product along with that, right?
So I just want to correct the big man here. He said there's going to be a Truth Social Plus. It's not true. There's a TMTG Plus and a TMTG News.
Yes.
So he's going to have this is in the press release. There's going to be a Netflix competitor and a Fox News competitor.
If it ever gets off the ground, which, again, nobody knows at this point whether it will.
But it's a SPAC, baby. You're going to line those pockets either way. Money.
Well, and I think that's really what it's about, is they'll create all of this money, this influx of money, and whether 100%. Any of it comes to reality is irrelevant.
Yeah. This is the Nikola Motors of social media companies.
At 100%. Absolutely. I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Except they're gypping the public and not General Motors. So the third part of this.
The third part of this is, look, this is created from a... Go ahead.
This is my favorite. This is actually my favorite part of the story. I'll jump in on this one.
Okay, go ahead.
Trump has historically done things where he's bought in social or multi-level marketing companies and rebranded them Trump. He's done a lot of different things where he white labels where you can go and buy a product that a normal person can buy the Target brand of something, right? And he'll brand it Trump and up the price. Trump vodka, Trump Airlines, whatever it is. He uses his name like a brand. This isn't a new social media network. It's simply a Mastodon instance. It's his own, and which is a open source company, which is an open source social media network, which as open source goes, like Android and others, if you, so this is a piece of software, not an operating system like Android, but I'm just saying Android. So there is a part of using the license of Mastodon where we're going to give you the software for free. You got to, mix with it, mess with it, make it yours, but you have to put that code out there for people to be able to see.
Correct.
And they aren't
so
doing
that in turn is then freeware, and that's how freeware works. If you make something better, that's the whole reason Android created freeware. It's why Tesla, Elon Musk has come out and said that once they finish the Tesla product that their electric cars run on, they want to make it open source so other electric companies can make it better or whatever. Right. This is the idea of we all can't know everything, but there might be someone out there that knows more, give them access, whatever. However, in the true Trumpian form in this case, they are not following the guidelines of the free and open source agreement that they have taken. So even though the platform, the social media platform itself, is not available to the general public because they had to shut it down because of what Anonymous did, now they're taking pre-orders, get on a list, right? So it's not even up. And they've already been served a 30-day notice that if they don't provide that open source,
their licensing will get yanked.
Exactly. And then there's no platform anyway.
Right. So I just want to remind everyone, this is not the first alternative social network. Our good friend, my personal good friend, Mike Lindell, we used to hang out all the time when I lived in Minnesota. We were good friends. My Pillow fame and fortune also said he was going to start a social media company called Frank Social, which went absolutely nowhere so fast it was hilarious.
Well, but look, it's not all of it. Look, Gab uses this software, right? This freeware.
So then
it's out there, right?
Yeah.
It's out there. And again, I'm not knocking anybody at TMTG using this freeware. Like, why not? It's there.
Yeah, why wouldn't
What I am knocking, though, is because somebody's going to eventually come out and go, oh, well, we didn't know, or we didn't whatever. And you did, because there's part of the article where you've already been seen where there's emails that show that someone internal working on this app for TMTG replied to an email saying that the Mastodon logo appearing inside was a bug they needed to fix. So they're acknowledging that they used it, that you see them like so there's no way out in this way except for to do the right thing, which is to open the source code. They've also been, and part of the lawsuit is not only are you not sharing the freeware, you're also saying in your terms and conditions that this is proprietary software.
Which it ain't.
It's not. So they're saying that it's proprietary, which it's not, and they're not sharing the source code.
Right. So fail. Major fail. Epic fail.
This is the part that I don't understand about a lot of these types. And again, I'm not picking on Trump in this case. This is actually a lot of different businesses. You have, how many people are employed that their job is their job for the last, let's say, 3 months is to get this out, to get this information out. And how did those people you paid are so dumb that this is what gets to market? That that somebody changes the word to proprietary. That someone, you know what I mean, goes, hey, that someone doesn't go, hey, yo, we can't do that.
So I wonder how much of that is the stupid people or it's boomer. Like what you said was so true. This is BoomerCon 101, which is, so there's different ways to approach business and developing technology. And one of the theories is, let's just put it all out there. It will metastasize. We're going to grow this thing so fast because we're going to have so many people joining and using our software that it's going to create a situation where we're going to be able to make money on the hardware, on the app, whatever. There's other ways to make money. And we're seeing this with Windows switched from like, hey, all the upgrades are free now. You know what I'm saying? Like, that the approach that has been a business, which is we're going to charge you for the operating system or the software or whatever, that has proven not to be a successful model. But the point is, when it comes to boomers, they're out to lunch on what works and what doesn't work, right? Which is why, as someone who is otherwise, politically savvy, I would say, I find boomer cons, which for those unfamiliar with the phrase, the boomer conservatives, to be a hilariously inept group of people who lack self-awareness. And when I hear them talk, all I can think is, how did you people survive?
Well, but that's what makes them out of touch, is they were in tune for their time. They were. Yeah. It's how they got where they were, right? They were innovative thinkers of their time. But they have made one mass mistake, and guess what? This is a lot of old folks. This is not just boomers. This is probably the generation before them and the generation before them. This ability to believe that what you think lasts forever, right?
Right. I guess that is true.
The work tools that you've developed based on your experiences, and now you're successful, you think that now applies to a new generation or a new situation, and it just changes too fast now, right? So some gray-haired 55, 60, 65-year-old that they had in a bunch of boardrooms, 10 of them, and they think, oh, Trump media technology, that's awesome, oh, good job. And they've got a whole bunch of interns and everything around them going, this is the dumbest effing thing on the planet, right, and nobody's listening to that group of people.
So here's the other thing. Maybe this whole thing works for the audience that it's appealing to.
And that could be true, because them themselves, their demographic is the audience.
Yeah.
So maybe that's maybe the head, and you might be right. Maybe my way of thinking about this is a more broad spectrum where they were trying to be very targeted.
We're thinking about this as business people. You have to start thinking about this as a grifter. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, see that, and that's true. I will tell you that is a weakness of mine, is I've never been able to grab the mindset of and look, and I've had a lot of people try to pull me into the dark side, including the guy over there. But
why's it got to be the dark side?
I've had a lot of people try to pull me in the direction of, hey, just do this with your name, right? And you can, and it will lead to this, and that kind of stuff. And this does, you're right, kind of fall in that vein, right? If that is the end result, which we can't know, right? We can guess, we can have our opinions, but if that is the end goal, you're right. Maybe it just is, hey, this is how we get people on board, and once they're fish in a barrel, it's just taking out fish in a barrel.
And so my thought process too is perhaps their theory is, we're going to start with the Mastodon instance on our own, customize the crap out of it, and build it out so it's a little more of a Facebook competitor or something that feels like Facebook. And here's another thing I'll just say in trying to close out this topic. I despised the way these people were like, well, we have nowhere to go now. When there are a handful of libertarian-esque social media platforms that have been around, like Minds has been around for almost a decade.
Sure.
Okay. It's a great platform. I use it. I can put video, all this other stuff on it. I really like it. The fact that they said, well, that's not good enough for us. We want something that really appeals to our patriot, whatever dumb thing. I hope all of their data gets spilled on the dark web.
Well, it's already been shown to. Obviously, hackers have already done that. So I would be curious to know what they're planning to do about that between now and its release, right? But again, it goes back to they don't want an alternative. And when I say they, I mean anybody complaining about what Twitter is, what Facebook is, what LinkedIn is, what any of these big players are. Anybody complaining about them from any level, what they want is that platform with their way of thinking. That's it. Yes. They want to be on Twitter and be able to say what they want to say and have people.
Exactly.
They don't want an alternative. Yes. Because they want the mainstream version.
Yes. Hey, guess what? What human nature. We all want to be, Barbara Corcoran of Shark Tank fame said, nobody wants what nobody wants and everyone wants what everyone wants. It's such a apropos thing to this. But I think we're going to move on to the next story. What do you say, big man?
Absolutely.
Before we do that, I want to tell you about the new store of value. It is same as the original store of value. It's God's money, my friend. It's gold. You can click the link down in the description down below, and you can get started with Acre Gold, which is a company that lets you build up a bank of monthly subscription. And when that subscription builds up to the cost of 2.5 grams of gold, they send you the gold in the mail.
I love that. God's money. That should be.
It is. I was just watching something from Robert Kiyosaki. I don't think he's not a religious guy. From what I remember him saying, he doesn't believe in God at all. But he refers to silver and gold as God's money, which is very interesting to me.
I like that. I could see that, and not only in the one God, but it was definitely in the Greek God age, and you know what I mean. Whatever silver and gold was absolutely the God's money.
Whatever incorrect idea you ascribe to your. We hit politics and religion in the same.
All in the same one.
So you can click the link down in the description. You can get started with Acre Gold today. We were so excited to bring them on as an advertiser because both of us are gold and silver. Hey, anytime one of my cousins or siblings has a kid, I go out and buy a couple of grams of gold, just to get them started. And one of my nephews has more money than I did when I was 20 because he was born when gold was kind of low,
at the low end. Yeah, that's nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, so this next story is so good, so hilarious. Netflix is buying up, and this is the third time they've done it. I didn't know about the other 2 times.
Yep.
They're buying up an old theater, an abandoned theater.
In SoCal.
In Southern California, which is, is this theater, like they're going to buy it and rehab it. Is anyone ever going to be allowed to go into it, though? Is the question. Which is, they should have bought.
You give Danny a political inch, he's going to take a political mile. But go ahead.
That's right. So they're reopening the Bay Theater at the Palisades Village. It's already opened. Actually, it opened on October 22nd. So we're recording this a little after that.
Yeah.
And this is the horseshoe of technology, right?
Yeah.
Warby Parker has physical locations where you can go and buy glasses.
Well, but Amazon opened bookstores again, right? Amazon opened bookstores. Go ahead.
They had purchased old Borders bookstores that had gotten out of business. Stop it.
They had put out of business, by the way. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So they put them out of business, and you could say that Netflix probably had something to do with these movie theaters going out of business, right? In some way, fashion, or form. So I think this is one of those. And look, guess what? Amazon buying the bookstores has actually been pretty successful for them, creating an atmosphere, right, and that kind of stuff. So you're right in that things are a horseshoe. So it sounds on the surface Netflix buying up, but I guarantee you they're getting these things for a deal. They're partnering with companies that probably already own the building in some way, right? So I doubt they're taking up 100% responsibility for them either. They're probably some kind of partnerships.
Right. I bet it's some sort of deal where they are... they're probably doing a lot of analytics and saying we have a lot of Netflix customers in this specific area. Here's a theater that went into bankruptcy or receivership. I'm assuming a lot of things here. I'm just suggesting that this is how it's working. I don't know that to be true. And they're saying, hey, we're going to buy up this theater. We're going to reopen it. And we're going to, because this is a complete vertical supply chain now, right? When I believe in some of the other ones they've opened, if you show that you have a Netflix account, I don't know how you do that, but you can just watch the movie for free.
Right. Well, and that's, look, there's a bunch of different ways to spin this, right? Your whole movie night out with the family, right? Or friends or date night or whatever. They essentially have no cost in licensing movies like a normal movie theater, right? You just, whatever Chris Hemsworth movie Netflix is already making, you put it out at, hey, if you live near one of these theaters, you can go see it a weekend ahead of time, you know what I mean? For $10 or whatever the normal pop. And they're not having to share that with a movie maker, They're not having to share that with anyone, right, or whatever, and it gives you a different experience. Now, do I think that Netflix is going to turn around and buy thousands of movie theaters across the country? No. I do, however, think in highly dense populated cities, SoCal, New York City, Austin, Houston, Dallas.
Yeah.
You buy up an old movie theater, right? Oh. You put these things in there. And let me tell you something, as a guy that's had, I mean, my kids are now 14, 13, and 13. So obviously for the last 14 years, right? Yeah. I've had little kids. And during the summer months and stuff like that, when they're not in school, movie theaters make so much money rerunning old Disney classics, all of these things that they've already bought and paid for a long time ago. And they'll, Little Mermaid on Tuesday. And you know what I mean? Bring the kids and it's kid friendly, whatever. And you take Netflix and they go, okay, guess what? On Monday, it's Monday, whatever day. And we're going to show these types of movies all day on Monday. We're going to show these types of movies all day on Tuesday. We're going to show, horror films on Thursday or whatever it is.
Right.
And people will come out and it's just a way for them to make extra money on the side.
And listen, the horseshoe of retail, brick and mortar, rather, where we're seeing all online businesses open a handful of retail locations, is not the same contrived notion of original retail. This is really an opportunity for them to, I think this is the Gary Veification of like customer appreciation. That's what I think it is. It gives your customers an ability to be tactile when they want to touch and feel you, a brand. They get to do that. And so for a company as big as Netflix, the premier player, the incumbent player in streaming, right? It makes perfect sense that they would go out there and buy up a theater or two in a highly dense, not just a highly densely populated city, but a city that has a lot of their subscribers where they can go, hey, you buy the most expensive, because I don't even have the cheapest Netflix membership. I have the more expensive Netflix membership, right?
Yeah.
Still no DVDs because I'm not a monster anymore, but you know what I'm saying? If you have, the whatever level and up, you can come out and have whatever it is, cocktail hour. Because Netflix is kind of like a gym membership. You kind of forget that you have it sometimes, but they keep just billing your credit card.
Well, but that's the whole point, is they have and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in our 4 story, right? But guess what? This gives them a place to hold events. If you're going to have a movie premiere, why wouldn't you have it at your own movie theater? Why wouldn't you have a red carpet at this, you know what I mean? In New York, in Austin, in SoCal and stuff like that. It gives you a place that you can have these events, you can bring people to. And like you said, people like these little tangible, right? I went to a Netflix event in SoCal, right? Or whatever. And it keeps them top of mind as well, right? So I think it just gives them freedom. I don't think it's anything that a completely new arm of Netflix or, I don't even think it's going to create an insane amount of revenue or whatever. I think it will pay for itself. Yes. I think it'll be a profitable arm, but I think relatively small and more, hey, we got to have events sometimes anyway.
Yes.
This gives us a place to have them.
And I think a city like Austin, Austin is kind of on and popping when it comes to pop culture. Have you seen they've rebooted Walker, Texas Ranger?
Yes.
And now
with the guy from Supernatural.
And the guy is now in Austin. And I started watching it and they did a whole 15-minute bit talking about queso. I was just like, I'm out. I quit. I mean, yes, we like queso here in Austin, but I'm just saying this is too much.
Does it need to be in all 3 of the first 3 episodes? Yeah, of him just chow. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. He's like, well, I went out for some queso. That's why you couldn't find me. But I think this is, I think we're going to continue to see direct-to-consumer online brands like Warby Parker, Amazon, Netflix. I think we're going to start to see smaller companies that are direct-to-consumer online realize that, hey, I need to have some sort of operation, whether it's warehousing or whatever. Why not combine that with a little retail space where my local customers can and that, listen, if that increases your customer appreciation, which increases the lifetime value of that customer, it starts to be worth it. If you guys watch a show like Shark Tank, and 13 seasons now into Shark Tank, they're talking to direct-to-consumer internet companies. And the one thing they always talk about, CAC, customer acquisition cost, and lifetime customer value. And if this is something that increases lifetime customer value for Netflix, as TMTG Plus comes online, and all these other, the more legitimate streaming options start to. And listen, I know people who 2 months of Netflix cancel, 2 months of Hulu cancel, 2 months of HBO cancel. They binge everything they want to binge, and they cancel, get something else. It's a very smart strategy, actually.
But that's not most people.
That's not most people. But for those who are long-term hanger-oners, me, for instance, right?
And me.
They just added Netflix. Seinfeld just got added back to Netflix.
Yeah.
You got me. I would pay $25 a month to watch Seinfeld all over and over.
Customer acquisition cost is a real thing, so being able to maintain that on, and again, it'll kind of tie into our fourth story when we come around here, is kind of part of that same strategy. And I think this is just smart. It's a low cost, inexpensive maintenance, because they'll end up with maybe 10 of these eventually, right? Yeah. Total.
I don't see them having more than 15 across the country, and 15 sounds pretty like a stretch.
Yeah, and very, very strategic locations.
Oh, man, I didn't realize we had 2 Netflix stories today. Either way.
We do. So we'll move on. Go ahead and move on to our next story, which I'm going to have to play the what I would normally say the Danny version of the story. So
this story is the non-story of stories.
No, not when you hear my take on it. So go ahead.
Okay. The big man wanted the story, so I permitted it. Okay.
Yes.
We're like a 19. He always refers to like our relationship. Well, it's kind of like a marriage, like a 1950s marriage, where I'm allowing this. I'm letting you cut your hair. Okay.
Go ahead. What's our ad before we have this story?
Of course, Big Man Gear is that guy's idea of a merch brand. So it's a humorous, fun, easygoing take on some of a Gen Xer's perspective on funny things. I love this man with all my heart, but we have very different ideas of what is funny.
Hey, I saw my first Big Man Gear shirt out in the wild this week. So
did you
know
really?
what? I did.
Mazel
I sure 100% did. It happens to be a neighbor 2 doors down, but hey, I don't care. It was out in the wild. I didn't know he had it. It was my new Big Man Gear that I just put up last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
So go to bigmangear.com. That'll take you to the Amazon Prime store. It's all packaged and shipped by Amazon Prime. Makes your life super easy. They already have all of your data, all of your likes, dislikes, facial recognition software. They know your voice print, your fingerprints, know your blood type. They know everything about you. So go to Amazon Prime.
I did offer to buy it from him immediately, because with him buying the T-shirt meant that I had to stand there and listen to his ideas on more T-shirts. So I kind of immediately regretted my decision. But yeah, no, it was awesome. Awesome.
All right. So that's bigmangear.com. So the story is obviously the Assemble protocol. It was listed on Coinbase Pro.
Yes.
It's an ERC20 token or an Ethereum token. Might be an easier way to understand it.
It's an Ethereum token. It's the best, is what most people are going to understand.
Yes. So again, it got listed on Coinbase Pro. And it goes up 217% in a day. By the way, just throwing this out there, the TMTG SPAC went up like 400 or 500% in a day.
Okay.
So 217 in a day is nice. It's a good day for those people who are holding the token. Token's trading around 7 cents right now.
Right. And
that is the end of the story as far as I understand it. The big man, take it away.
That is the end of the story, really is the story. But here's my thing. You and I have talked about stocks over the weeks doing the show. We've talked about, uplisting to NASDAQ. We've talked about SPACs. We've talked about, that kind of stuff.
Listings.
Right. We talked about all of this stuff. Right. Yeah. Here's my when I say my take on this is this is a relatively unknown cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah,
like
and
nobody knew this existed.
And I, as someone who is, a dabbler, I didn't know what this was. So.
Okay, so this is my point entirely, my take on this story, which is I'm going to go ahead and wave the red flag on this, as is popular this week. Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Yeah. You have a relatively unknown cryptocurrency that gets listed on the largest cryptocurrency exchange in the United States of America, and it triples in value overnight.
Yeah.
Does that not seem like some Wolf of Wall Street pink stock stuff back in the day, right off the movie, where you take a pink stock that nobody knows, that's two guys out of a garage,
right?
You put it out there, give access to millions of people that are being called on the phone telling them it's the next Amazon,
right,
and then
whatever,
and then it shoots up in value because of the, you know what I mean? Because of, and the people that are selling it to you are the ones selling.
Yeah.
Right.
So, who are you saying is the one pushing the Wolf of Wall Street style deal?
I think Coinbase.
Coinbase?
My fear is that Coinbase, because Coinbase has two products. They have their free version and their pro version. If you look at that, their free version has access, according to their website as of today, you have on their free version access to 107 cryptocurrencies, including the big ones, your Bitcoin, your Litecoin, that kind of stuff. And then they have the pro version, which is a paid version. You get lower fees on it, but you have access to what it says, again, according to its website, 250 plus and growing. How, as Coinbase, as a company, let's just say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. I believe that, right?
Yeah.
You have access to the largest exchange of cryptocurrencies. How do you not abuse that in some way by going, here's Joe Bob cryptocurrency, let's add it to Coinbase because we know that's automatically going to get a pop. We know that's automatically going to grow.
Here's the thing: your theory here isn't wrong. I just don't think that Coinbase cares that much about making 217% because they can do better with other ones.
No, but their part is the fees. They could give a crap. Yeah. It's not about that it went up 300%. It's about the number of transactions. That's my point. That's the whole Wolf of Wall Street thing. Now, Wolf of Wall Street was making it on both ends. They were making a portion of the growth and selling it, right? Which was the illegal part, right? They own the companies that they were selling, right? But in this case, how do you know not the same thing? How do you know, you and I, again, Wolf of Wall Street, how do you know that Coinbase isn't out there buying up a big chunk of this cryptocurrency and then turning around and selling it as the
You're right. I guess I don't know that. And I guess I don't know that, when a company is that big as Coinbase, they're not, every decision isn't running from the top. So there's no reason to think that maybe some littler guy who's like, hey, there's a reason to look at the white paper on this coin and on this token, rather, look at the white paper on this token and says, hey, we should list this on pro. So that's where I'm saying,
NASDAQ, all of these, the big boards, right? NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, have all these hurdles to make sure that you are a legit company that has a legit product that should be on these. How did Coinbase come about deciding that nobody?
So here's the thing, big man. In the entire crypto industry, I would say 90% of the projects you're going to see out there are grifts of this nature. They're pump and dumpers.
But that's my entire point. Coinbase is big enough.
Right. That they should have weeded out this as a pump and dumper. If it is,
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying
of course, we don't know that
cryptocurrency that no one that I know has ever heard of. That I can't find a single reason. So. I can't find. Look, I'd spend my days and nights about head deep in business stuff. That I can't find a single. I cannot find a single. And this is how I kind of came up with this theory, right? This Wolf of Wall Street type of theory is I can't find a single article out there that shows why this company should be on Coinbase. Why this cryptocurrency was chosen over any other number that are out there. There was that whole thing about a year ago, or maybe it was a year and a half ago, where Warren Buffett says, here's my cryptocurrency portfolio, and it's like a stack about this wide of papers where he had bought like millions of cryptocurrencies of these ones that were fractions of pennies or whatever. And he's like, if one of these takes off or whatever. I mean, there are so many out there. Yeah, Coinbase has this access of people. They're fish in a barrel. Same thing we were talking about in the first story. If you have a Coinbase wallet, you are a fish in a barrel for cryptocurrencies. We know that's what you're here for. So if I grab one that it's of no value and push it out to you, how many people of the millions of people that have Coinbase wallets are going to throw some money into it? And then transaction fees and, and again, cryptocurrency being heavily unregulated. Nobody's watching where any of this money's going. Well, nobody's watching. Heavily
unregulated is a weird phrase because it's just unregulated, right?
Well, yes, you are correct. I did use heavily in front of a word that didn't need it. So, but maybe...
Look at me being a dick.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, using grammar.
Listen, yeah, okay. Hey, listen, this story starts the story ends the way it starts, as being a non-story, to me, anyway.
Right. No, okay. I think this story to me was just an opportunity to talk about one of the ways that I think, again...
Yes, and that the broader story here is, hey, guess what? When it comes to the crypto and DeFi industry, there's some skeevy people out there. Just like literally every other industry that's ever existed since the beginning of time.
That's funny because the difference between Danny and I is glaring in this. Danny just goes, you should accept the fact that there's a bunch of skeevy people out there. Where I sit in the fact that, hey, maybe we can prevent some of these skeevy people doing skeevy things. Right?
No. This is how you prevent skeevy people from harming people. You let them harm 2 or 3 people, and the rest of us go ski ball,
sleazeball. He's
fake.
Yeah,
fake news. Fake news.
You're fake news.
Yeah, because otherwise we erect the system in which the skeevy people develop regulations, and other skeevy people come along and they go, "Hey, let's skeeve out everybody else," and then. Yeah, and then we end up with Trump social media.
See, I started out with the conspiracy theory that led to Danny getting his own out there. I like it.
The horseshoe. All right. We're going to move on to this last story about Squid Game. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Powerhouse Drones. A lot of you are going to be sitting at home now or whatever, looking for a new hobby. Want to learn about flying a drone. Want to see what your neighbors are up to in their house because they're always getting
that's
weird
illegal.
Packages.
Danny, stop it. Go ahead.
Of course, I'm not telling people to do that. I'm joking. It's a joke. You can go to powerhousedrones.com. It's my website. You'll learn about what kind of drone is the right drone for you to use in entirely legal and moral ways.
Yes, because he said that with a lot of confidence. But go ahead.
So this last story is an interesting one. The big man sent it to me, and I just don't care for it. But again, we're a 1950s marriage. Sometimes you have to let the little lady do what she wants.
First of all, Netflix, you have not seen Squid Games, really?
No,
none of it.
No,
are you crazy?
I don't speak Korean, and I'm not going to watch it.
They have an English dub version. All right,
I don't like the English dub version. And then, listen.
All right. I'm just going to say this. It's probably the best English dub version of any show I've ever seen.
So when I was a kid, I loved watching karate movies, kung fu movies, that kind of thing. I watched a lot of dubbed over stuff that was Chinese to English, Japanese to English. Can't do it. I'm just over it. I'm not watching subtitles. I don't care how good you say it is. I don't care how... You're not the only person in my life saying I have to watch this. You're not the only person saying, well, there's an English dub version. Tell you what.
It's so good.
Yeah, okay. So they're saying that Netflix is estimating, and this is a mind screw of a phrase. But they're saying that over 130 million people have watched the show.
Yes.
It cost them about $20 million to make Squid Game.
Yep.
And they're saying the second season will bring around $900 million of value.
No. They're saying this first season has created $900 million in value.
I got it wrong?
Yeah. So here's the deal. And here's why this is important. And we kind of alluded to it earlier.
Ooh,
Obviously, Netflix obviously Netflix, unlike a movie that comes out at the movies, right? We've all heard the headlines where, okay, the new horror movie made $200 million worldwide, whatever. Netflix doesn't do that. They don't sell tickets. They sell monthly subscriptions, right? So this goes into what we were talking about earlier about maintaining customers, right? And how they maintain and grow customers from month to month, right, is by providing new products, new shows, new movies, whatever. So they have to evaluate what something is worth differently than a movie ticket. Right. So they have an algorithm on the back end, which, by the way, Netflix is notorious for not giving out information. They'll say something like, oh, this is the number one show, whatever, but they never talk about how much money it's made on it, how much, whatever. They are notorious. They don't even let Fluffy, who's the guy, the Hispanic comedian Fluffy, Gabriel Iglesias, right? Has a whole skit in some of his newer comedy stuff talking about when he was doing a show for Netflix. Every week he would wait on that call from Netflix, and he would get the call, and the call would tell him nothing. He's so how did my show do? He's like, no, we're not here to talk about that, but you're great to keep recording. And it's well, how did I do? How's the show doing? No, we're not. So they don't even give the stars of the show the information. They definitely don't give it to the media, right? So for them to turn around and say, hey, this is worth, it cost us $21 million, it's worth $900 million to us in value, is an insane number, right?
It's wild. And this is what, when people, they hear about movies that cost, TV shows that cost a lot of money to make, this is, companies like Netflix, people that make movies, movie producers, studios, or whatever, they operate with a venture capital style model, which is, we're going to throw a bunch of money at the wall here, at a bunch of different ideas, which is kind of why you'll see, sometimes competing studios will have the similar movies coming out at the same time. Because I remember there was maybe 2-3 years ago, there was 3 Robin Hood movies coming out at the same time.
And 2 Hercules movies came out at one time, like The Rock's and then the other guy. And there's always one that's more popular than the other. But that's been forever. Back when Deep
Bugs
Impact
Life
came out
Ants.
the same year as... Bugs Life and Ants came out the same year. Deep Impact and what was it? Armageddon came out the same year. Like that. So it's happened before. But this kind of thing, what you have here is one of those anomalies where you go, this is how Netflix can be Netflix for the foreseeable future, is you have relatively low cost. This is a South Korean movie, right? Or TV show that was created in South Korea. It cost them $21 million not only to create, but to produce and push out. And so that's basically their top number. Here's what it cost us entirely is $21 million. Here's what it's worth to us, $900 million. And if we can continue to do that, well, we'll just own everything, right?
Yeah. So here's the other thing. What you said earlier, which is they don't reveal their numbers to anybody. We don't know if any of what they're saying is true.
Right. There's no way to verify this other than Netflix saying it. Right?
Yes.
But we do know that obviously Squid Game, and I say we do know, they've been telling us for 2 weeks that Squid Game is their number one new show that has been watched by. But again, this is all information coming from Netflix.
Right. So we don't know if any of this is true. I just think, it's interesting that no one is going, hey, there's only Korean people in this Korean show. And that's not offensive it shouldn't be offensive to anybody, but I just think that's interesting.
Here's what I'm curious to see ultimately what Netflix. So I'll give you an example. There have been several shows throughout the last 10 or 15 years that have become new. Let's say just some fall new show on NBC, right?
Yeah.
And then I come to find out during the course of that it's actually a remade version of like a European show. Yes. Like The Office, for example, was a remake of a show that already existed. Just an American, called The Office, right? Yeah. And they didn't even rename it. They just No, this is the American version. And guess what? It's a brand new show. So if you're watching the American version of The Office for 3 seasons, and then you go, oh, holy crap, there's 5 seasons of this European Office. Right. And then you go on and you figure out it's the same characters, it has the same basic storyline. There might be little nuances, right? So in this case, there's another one called Ghost this year that just came out, and I figured out, like, no, it's a remake. But my point, though, is how does... let's say in this case, Squid Game, right? Netflix came out with this. They dubbed it English. They really don't have an option to turn around 4 years from now and create an English, right? An American, like, redo it.
They could totally remake it. Just call it something else, right? They could turn it into a
very
movie.
Similar storyline and very similar.
So I can say this much, my family is from India. I was born here, but India is different in this. People always talk about Bollywood produces so many movies. Guess what, friends? India speaks 20 different languages, something like 20 different languages. So they have literally changed the production style of their movies to where they make a movie and they have the set, everything set up. They take the script, they translate it in 5 different languages. They have the actors there and they go, okay, Hindi people go first, now Telugu, and that's how they shoot movies, right?
Really?
Yeah.
So they don't dub it over like we do in English. No. They have different actors, or the same actors do a different language.
Because Indian, the Kerala people know that, well, that's a Tamil actor, right? So they know that that's not a guy who speaks our language. We don't want this fakery in our house. But you will see that where actors will learn, and we see this in K-pop, where Korean singers will learn different Chinese languages so that they can play in China. They'll learn a lot of different languages, and they'll speak 3 or 4. And I remember, I have a niece who's big into K-pop, and there's literally the exact same song, and there's the Chinese version and the Korean version, and the band has 20 members in it, and the Korean version is 10 guys. And
these 10 guys? Oh.
But there's an overlap, and then the guys who are in the middle, who are in the overlap, are the cuter ones, right?
Of course.
So, yeah, it's all very interesting, but that's how they shoot movies in other places. So, and listen, this concept isn't new. The concept for the show Shark Tank is actually called Dragon's Den and was on in the UK and Australia for a long time, my friends. And they brought it to the US and they go, dragons. That doesn't translate into American culture. They go, Shark Tank. A couple weeks ago, they had Peter something from the original Dragon's Den from the UK crossed over to do the American show. Fascinating, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So that is one way when you are dealing with a global audience to create inexpensive content. And hey, guess what? Why do they make so many action movies? Because because Kaboom is the same thing in every language.
Well, sure. And look, Netflix has done, and they've gotten better and better in some ways. They've gotten movie stars, right? Chris Hemsworth is making a second Extraction. You've gotten big time movie stars to come in and
start making a second Extraction.
Yes, they are making a second Extraction.
Because the first one was so good.
It was good, but it was an action movie. Again, what do you want out of an action movie, right? That's actually my biggest knock on Netflix, to be honest with you, that I think is the gap between Netflix or even a lot of other countries in their TV shows and movies and like Hollywood is the development of characters, that depth of character. So Extraction, for example, great action movie as long as you don't pay any attention to the depth of the characters in it, right?
Yeah, they're shallow like a puddle.
Right. So where if it was a Hollywood movie, there would be a lot more depth to the character. There's a lot more time spent of you getting invested in how that character feels, invested in that character's pain, invested.
Like it was a good action romp, but I wasn't. Right. And what's an interesting tidbit for our audience, we were going to reboot our original podcast, which was a movie podcast where we're talking about movies. And so the big man texted me and said, hey, can you watch Extraction? I watched it. He did not text me back for 3 weeks to record the video talking about it. We never reviewed it.
Danny's not butthurt about it at all. So
not at all.
Not butthurt about it. That was only like 2 years ago. So
yeah, I am so used to never like, hey, we're gonna do this, then hearing nothing from you. Yeah.
Hey, we have a podcast right now that we're doing this on, but he's still butthurt. Look. It's estimated, according to what Netflix put out, people have spent 1.4 billion hours watching the show. That's billion
a lot of,
with the B.
Yeah, that's a lot of lifetime right there.
Okay, and look, this all, and again, Netflix is in the business of making money, so this all goes into the pot for them, right? It's already, Netflix was down for the year, but they've already seen like a 7% increase in their stock since this show came out, and they started leaking. And again, these are all coming from Netflix. It could all be fugazi. I don't know. Okay. But, it could all be a ploy just to increase their stock price for, in the short term because they're down. But you're talking about something that, again, according to them, the entire season of Squid Games cost them less to produce and put on their channel than Dave Chappelle's new special.
Holy crap. I guess when you think about it, they did give him $40 million for that, didn't they?
It cost less the entire season than 2 episodes of The Crown.
Wow.
So when you put it in that kind of light, you start to see why Netflix goes, hey, we need a little bit more of this.
Yeah, totally.
A little bit more of this, a little less of that. A little bit more of this, a little less than that. Now, I will say, again, even though I did enjoy it, what's that? Squid Game? Yeah, I've seen the entire season, right? Okay. So, and I say it's awesome. I also have a tendency, and you know this based on our movie review days, that I have a pretty low bar for TV shows and movies.
And you like everything.
If I'm entertained, it's worth it to me.
Yeah.
I do. So I did, when I say it's awesome, I mean in the lens of what it is. It's a South Korean TV show that they dubbed into English. So if you put it
going to be North Korean.
If you put that in perspective of that's what it is,
right,
and put your expectations there, it's great. It's amazing, right? And as far as the twists, like if you're reading a book, there's a couple of great twists in it, right?
Yeah. I just don't have the time to invest into another show. Billions is on Amazon. I wanted to start watching Startup because it's on Netflix. Where do I have the time? I'm running several successful businesses over here.
I understand. Yeah. But sometimes you've got to make time for certain things that are relevant. And this looks like one of those trains that, at least for Netflix, has definitely paid off. And I wonder for them because they've been pushing foreign TV shows down your throat for years now. Like this is not, by far, not their first.
The number of times I've clicked on a show being so excited for it, and then it's like, and then it's in French. It's like, oh, Netflix. I'm this close. If I click on one more thing in French, because the French are dirty, if I click on one more thing that's in French, I swear to God, Netflix, I will be a TMTG Plus subscriber for life.
My wife won't watch anything dubbed. She hates it when their lips don't match. And she won't watch anything in subtitles either. Where I'll watch action movies in subtitle, like Ip Man, right? Ip Man are all subtitles, right? Or
Intellectual Property Man.
No. But yes, Ip Man or The Train to Busan. You know what I mean? Okay. The zombie ones. But anyway,
I have a cousin that's an intellectual property attorney. And I made that joke to him once, and he rolled his eyes and was like, "Well, that's all right." I was like, "That's actually really funny, you jerk."
So, oh, that's funny. Puns are cool.
Yeah,
and you're not even a dad.
Well,
that is a total dad joke. That is a total dad joke.
Well, before we cut everybody loose today, I just want to remind everyone that it is easier to brainwash people than it is to tell a person who is brainwashed that they are brainwashed.
I'm not going to get into why you thought that was an appropriate ending to this particular show. All right, folks, we'll see you next time.